Hello, welcome to the video. My name is Colby. I am from StarlinkHardware.com, and in today's video we're going to be showing you how to mount your Starlink dish with a J-mount. Right in front of me here I've got 3 different J-mounts, all of which I recommend on the website StarlinkHardware.com, but today's going to be sort of a mixture between a review between these 3 and also an instruction tutorial on how you can actually mount the dish with one of these J-mounts. So let's go right into showing you which mounts I have here and what I like about all of them. So the first up is the cheapest option here. This is a Ubiquity. This one is, I think it's under 30 bucks on Amazon. And by the way, guys, all the links for these will be below in the description on the YouTube video. So this is the Ubiquity. This is the cheapest option, and not surprisingly, kind of the one with the least amount of features, the least included things. So as you can see, it's just basically a white. They describe it as a white color, but it's almost like a little bit of an off-white, kind of gray. But not really that bad. These are just cheap, mass-produced mounts, 1.5 inches for the outside diameter, and that's really what you're looking for as far as a Starlink J-mount, is the 1.5 inch diameter. But, you know, pretty standard mounting plate. You get the adjustability on the angle. The mast is, I believe it's 18 inches, and it's reversible. So you can see how you have a shorter side here, longer side here. This is how you would put it if you want the maximum height. You flip it the other way if you need to maybe do a wall mount and get away from the wall a little bit. So that's reversible, and then you've got, you know, your adjustment bolts down here where you can lock down the angle. So basic mount, cheapest on the list. If you're super budget conscious, this is the one I would go with. Again, this is the Ubiquity, link in the description below. So moving on to the next one, this is sort of my second place recommendation here. This is the Proxicast Pro Grade J-Max, and this is the stainless steel version. They also have an aluminum version available. So if you're looking for, you know, maximum weather resistance, this is probably the one that I would recommend. Maybe not the stainless steel, but actually the aluminum one. So this one, I think both versions come in under $40, so still cheaper than the Starlink OEM mounts, but this gives you this nice choice of building material. So again, pretty standard J-mount. You get the adjustability here. The 2 kind of unique things besides the finish that is different between these 2 is that it comes included with these lag bolts to secure it to your roof or your wall or whatever. And then it also has the ability to lock. So if you notice right here, you got 3 positions, 45 degrees or a 0. So depending on your angle of where you need to mount it, you could potentially lock it into place, not having to worry about this slide mechanism. So again, that's the Proxicast Pro Grade J-Max. This is the stainless steel version. And then finally, my top recommendation for J-mount for Starlink is going to be the Winegard DS2000A or the DS3000A. The only difference between the 2 is the length. So this one's like a 22 inch, I believe, mast. As you can see, it's definitely taller than the other 2. The DS3000A is like a 38 inch length mast. So if you need more height on your installation, or maybe more distance away from a wall, you know, you could look into that DS3000A. Again, all the links are in the description below. But the reason that I picked this as my top one, mainly because of the included U-bolts. So as we'll get in here in a second, when we actually get to the tutorial part of this video, you'll see that there's a couple different ways to actually secure the Starlink mast to the J-mount. And the easiest way is definitely using something like this, which is a U-bolt or a pipe clamp or whatever you want to call it. That requires no drilling, no additional modification to the Starlink or the J-mount itself. So that's kind of what seals this as my top pick. Comes included with it. You don't get the lag bolts, so you have to supply those yourself to be able to mount them to your wall or your roof or whatever. But again, just like these 2, very simple design. Standard J-mount, you just get a swivel. This one though, you can't reverse. So that's not a big deal though, because like I said, they have the 38 inch version available if you need that. And even in this configuration, it's still taller than the other two. So absolutely no reason to actually even need that reversibility on this one, since I get more clearance, more height from this in either configuration. So yeah, that's my top 3 recommendations. So as far as how you actually use these with the Starlink mount, I've got an example here to show you with, this is the OEM mount, this is the Volcano mount, this is for the round dish. Don't know if they make this, they definitely don't make this for the square dish, but this just gives you an idea of what I'm talking about and what's required for the installation for both the square dish, rectangular dish, whatever you want to call it, and the round dish. So you can see right here, we've got these holes. These are what the little spring tabs slide down into and actually lock the mount in place as far as the OEM mast. So it'll come in here, insert down, little spring clips will lock into place, and that's what secures the dish to the mount. Now obviously, with your aftermarket J-mount, you don't have that. So you've got 2 options. You can measure the size of this hole. I think it's a little over ½ an inch, maybe ½ an inch or so would work. But you can drill into these J-mounts in a similar location to be able to reuse those spring tabs. Or you can do like I'm going to do, and what I recommend, which is to use these U-bolts, these clamps, to actually just apply force to the outside and clamp it down in the tube itself. Now in all these J-mounts, these are 1.5 inch outside diameter, and the OEM Starlink mast is going to actually insert into these tubes, all 3 of them. The outside diameter of the Starlink antenna mast, I think is 1.3-ish for the round dish, and maybe a little bit less for the rectangular dish. But either way, they're both going to insert into a 1.5 inch J-mount, no problem. So with that, you'll just clamp it from the outside, or like I said, you can go through the trouble of drilling holes. You know, and what's nice about some of these two, especially the Proxicast and the Ubiquity, is that they have kind of pre-drilled holes already that you could actually just use, hollow those out a little bit, and then kind of have an OEM configuration there. Now, even if you do that, and the main reason why I don't recommend that, there's still going to be a little bit of wiggle room in here between the OEM mast and then the J-Max, just because they're not meant for Starlink specifically. They're kind of a universal antenna mount, right? So you're going to have a little bit of a gap, and what we're going to do is got my electrical tape up there, but we're going to use some electrical tape to wrap around the Starlink mast to kind of fill that in a little bit, get a little bit less wiggle room before we actually use the clamps to tighten it down. So you can, no matter which mount you choose here, you can use this method. You just got to go to your local hardware store, find something that matches the approximate diameter of the mount that you're using, and then once you get it all in place, you'll just clamp it down. So it shouldn't be too hard, and that's why I recommend it. Easiest way, in my opinion, to do it. But again, you can go through the trouble of drilling holes if you'd like. Okay, you may have been wondering what the deal is with my setup here and what this thing and that's all about, so let me kind of go through and explain that. So when I first got my round Starlink dish about 13 months ago, I bought the Starlink, the OEM version of the flashing mount, and then the Volcano mount to mount to my roof, which will be up there in a second. And at the time, with this Volcano mount, Starlink advertised that you could have up to a 40-degree roof pitch and it would still work. Well, they've recently changed that, and I think they've reduced it down to like 20 degrees now as far as your mast angle for the round dish. It's actually even less. I think it's within 5 degrees of vertical for the rectangular dish. So that required me to actually figure out a way to get a swivel mount on here, and that's why I picked up the J-mount. So what you'll see when we get up there is that how the flashing mount works. This is just like the cap, and what I actually had to do, since the hole pattern for the J-mount's different, I had to actually drill new holes, and then I patched this with some flashing tape on the inside and then some roofing cement on the outside. Hopefully that holds up. We'll have to check it, every 6 months or so just to see how it's doing. But yeah, the way this works, it's probably my favorite, probably the best way to mount a Starlink to the roof with the flashing mount, As you'll see in a second, you always have at least one layer of shingles protecting. There's no exposed fasteners that actually go into the roof, so that's why I did it this way. But again, just had to go with the J-mount for the swivelability so that I could get the mast within specification, which had just recently been updated. As you can see, my roof is very pitched, and I've got several tall trees around me. So this was my only option, was coming up here and mounting to the very top of the pitch. So let me climb up here. Okay, now we're at the top. Hi, dog. Okay, so this is how the flashing mount works. Set this here. Okay, so as you can see, what we had to do is cut this first layer of shingles with the template they provided, and then you insert the flashing mount underneath that first layer of shingles. All the fasteners are around the perimeter here, and after you secured them into the rafters here, you applied some roofing cement all around the perimeter and actually glued back down the second layer of shingles. You see right there, I kind of made a mistake, ripped one of the top layer of shingles, so I just roofing cemented it back together. So I've had this in place for, like I said, about 13 months, and no issue so far with leaks or anything. So let's go ahead and get this put back into place. The way that these work, by the way, they have so 4 screws on the outside here that secure this top plate to the flashing mount, and these have a rubber gasket. So I'll speed up the video here and get all these put into place, and then we'll talk about how to go from there. Okay, so that is all fully secured now to the roof, not going anywhere. What we need to do now is actually align this up where we want it to be vertical, and then we can actually strap in the Starlink that you see delicately hanging over there. I know it's going to make some people cringe, but no, I swear it's secure. So let me run down and get the level that I forgot, and then we'll be back to level it. I don't know if you could see over there or not to that house, but maybe if I stand up a little bit, but they actually have, I think it's a biosat that they have. And he's pretty jealous of me that I got Starlink, but yeah, this is a full capacity cell, so he's not able to order right now. I think he's got his deposit in, but yeah, he's pretty excited. Okay. So like I said, the Starlink says that the dish should be within as close to vertical as possible. So we will go ahead and get that done right now. Just going to use our level here. Doesn't have to be perfect. That's good enough. Oh shit, almost dropped my wrench. So we'll go ahead and lock that into place. Just tightening down these swivel bolts right here. This is the, if you remember, this is the Winegard, however you say it, DS2000A. It's the mount we picked today. Almost there. And we'll tighten the center one finally. Yeah, that ain't going anywhere. Even with the weight of Starlink on it, which is really not that heavy, but we're still close enough to level. Satisfied with that. So now we get to the fun part, which is actually securing it into the J-Mount. So let's do a test fit here and see how it's gonna end up. These are those spring tabs that I was talking about. These just press in and go out of the way. So you can either remove these, drill the hole in your J-mount, put a bolt in there, or you just do like I'm gonna do and put the whole thing in there. Okay, so we got to be careful here because let me get on the other side to show you. But so right now, trying to find a stable footing here, but so right now it's sitting on this little cable. We don't want it to be like that for very long. And actually, there's not. This is the round dish. There's not that much wiggle room really, so I'm not even actually going to worry about trying to tape it. There's just not enough for me to worry about. So if you're installing the rectangular dish, again, the mast is a little bit narrower, so you might have to buffer that space a little bit with some electrical tape or whatever. So I am going to quickly tighten this down to get our first, just do it like this, to get our first clamp on so that I can get all the weight off of that connector. And actually I'm going to spin it like that. I'm going to put the wire in the back. This will be fine in the front here. Just enough pressure to hold it off of there. Just trying to evenly tighten it down as much as I can. Okay, so now I've tightened this U-bolt enough to where it's actually holding the mast in place now, so I don't have to worry about that connector being damaged. So the round dish connector is actually not, can't take this off, so I can't remove it like you can with the rectangular dish. So, okay, now the first clamp is secure. We're gonna follow it up. Probably the mount goes not too much further than this, so we can't really go down too far. Sorry, still trying to get a comfortable spot here. This roof is pitched like crazy, so having to use my shoes to grip myself up here so I don't slide down. But we'll do the same thing, just get it tightened down. final tighten on these. Still able to spin that in there, so I'm gonna tighten it down more. Now I'm not able to spin, so I think that's good. Just for good measure, a little bit more on this bottom one. Okay, that's good. So what I like about this clamp method versus the hole drilling method is that you don't actually have to damage anything or potentially damage the Starlink mast in case you need to eventually sell it one day or return it or whatever. You don't actually have to worry about that damaging it. So as you can see, let me back up here, this out of the shot. So that looks pretty good. We got our flashing mount in place, got our J-mount tightened down. Mast is now vertical, whereas before with the volcano mount it was coming out like that, and it was actually giving me an error on the app saying that the Starlink was tilted too far. So when I bought the mount, that was acceptable according to the specs, but now it's not. So with a firmware update, so now I've got to correct it, and that's why I picked the DS2000A here. As you can see, at least with the round dish, it works flawlessly, perfectly stable. I mean, it's going to sway a little bit, of course, just because you've got, you know, 3 or 4 feet here off the roof, but this should hold up. When I had it on the volcano mount here, we've had 60-mile-an-hour gusts and everything, and it's held up just fine. So I'm not worried about this at all. Time will tell. I'll have to come up here every once in a while and inspect and make sure everything's good. Yeah, so guys, that's it. That's how you install the Starlink dish with a J-mount, an aftermarket J-mount. I like this solution because it's a lot cheaper than doing the OEM Starlink mounts. It serves the same purpose, and I think most importantly, you can actually get these. A lot of people on the Starlink subreddit on Reddit have been complaining about not being able to get their mounts, so they get their dishes finally after they've been waiting a year or more, and they can't mount it anywhere because they can't get the mount from the store. So this solves that problem. Go visit the links below in the description, and that'll link directly to this product and the other 2 mounts that I was talking about down there, and you know, mount it up like this right away. Thanks for watching. Again, this is a video by StarlinkHardware.com.